Hey everyone, my name is Pastor Ben. This is the EMD Campus Ministry YouTube channel. Hi Bella. Hey Bella, you want to come up here? Anyway, so I want to talk about what Campus Ministry is all about, why we have this YouTube channel, and not just the YouTube channel. We also have a website, a lot of other resources, also a lot of resources in the works. Um, and I think maybe the best way to talk about this is by sharing my own personal story. So after I graduated high school, well, first off, I grew up in the church from I think the first Sunday after I was born, my parents had me in a church service. So I was practically born in the church. I grew up, um, going to church with my family, being a part of Sunday school and all of that. And my family was very active in the church. So I ended up becoming very active in the church. But that being said, I still like I owned it. I wasn't a Christian just out of momentum, like some people tend to be. They just grow up in the church and then they stay Christian because they grew up that way. That wasn't my case. I definitely owned my faith, but I didn't really understand it a lot. I knew I was a Christian. I didn't really know why, and I didn't exactly know what that meant. So after I graduated high school, I took a year off. I kind of knew what I wanted to go to school for. I wanted to go to a trade school to become an architect, but I still took a year off just to take a break from academics. And while I took that year off, I lived in Colorado actually, and did some work there for a family member. And I just remember struggling a lot with feeling like I had a place. Because, I just graduated high school, so I wasn't a part of the youth group anymore. So when I went to church, I couldn't really join in with the teens unless I wanted to be like an adult leader or a helper or something. And I didn't really fit in very well with like the adult Sunday school classes. I mean, I got along fine with the adults, but I didn't feel I could contribute anything to the conversations they were having, and the things they were talking about were just things that I couldn't relate to. I didn't feel like they had anything to do with where I was in life. Like they were talking about being parents and how can you be a Christian like in the workplace? And I was still trying to figure out what my workplace was. I didn't have a career. I wasn't married. I didn't have my own place to live. I lived with my parents. So for me, I was trying to ask, well, what does being a Christian look like for me? And I wasn't hearing anybody else talk about that, so I didn't know. I didn't know how to ask those questions. I didn't know how to explore those. And there is actually one instance where I was a part of an adult Sunday school class, and a few weeks after starting to attend it, the pastor of the church comes up to me and asks me to leave because the fact that I was a single young man was making some people in the class feel uncomfortable because it was a group of married people. And that kind of solidified for me this sense that I didn't have a place in that church because I didn't know where else to go. Again, I couldn't be a part of the youth group, and that was the only class, that was the only group in the church that I felt some sense of camaraderie with, and I was asked to leave it. So I really didn't feel like I was a part of anything. And I also started to ask questions during that time. I started to ask questions about like what being a Christian meant, like in general. Like I knew I was saved, but what was the purpose of the Christian life? And the only thing I could articulate was, well, being a Christian means you have to make sure other people get saved too. But that just didn't make sense to me. Not that that I thought it was a bad thing. It just felt so incomplete. I was like, well, what else is there? Like, what is it about being a Christian that affects how I do work as an architect, which is what I wanted to do at that time? How does it affect, my relationship at school? Because I did end up taking night classes at a trade school. How does it affect that? And again, I didn't hear anyone else asking those questions. I didn't hear anyone else giving those answers. It's not to say no one was. It's just I didn't know if anyone was. I didn't have any connections. I didn't really have a social group of people who were in a similar situation as me. And I did start asking a friend of mine who was in youth group with me. I says, I feel like there's got to be something more to this Christian life than just trying to get someone else saved. like there's got to be something more. There's got to be something more than just reading your Bible and praying. Like, what does this life actually look like? And they actually got really upset at me and started debating me and kind of brought their friends against me as well to try and tell me I shouldn't be asking those questions. That by asking those questions, I'm revealing that I'm actually not a Christian. And I was like, okay, this conversation is just stupid. But, anyways, so I struggled for a long time with those questions, really trying to figure out not just where my place was in the church, but wondering if I even had a place. Like, where did I belong? What does it mean, again, to say that I'm a Christian? And uh, I really struggled with that because I had to do it all by myself. I felt like I didn't have anyone, I didn't have a group that I could share those experiences with, that I could walk alongside of. Um, because again, I was either being looked up to by the teens, which I thought was weird. I didn't even know why they would want to look up to me, or I would be looked down on by adults. I didn't have any peers to work with. Um, and I know everyone's experience is different. Everyone's gonna, come, into this sort of pre-adulthood phase, going to college or just graduating high school, trying to figure out what that is for you, and not really having all the answers put together. Again, everyone's background is going to be different. That's just my experience. But the reason I'm here is because I want to be someone who can walk with college students, who can walk with our young people and help them navigate what this Christian life is all about, why it matters, and what it looks like, especially during the time as you grow into adulthood. Like, what does living the Christian life look like in a context like that? And I want to be able to provide a space for students to come together, to share what they're going through, to learn together, to grow together, because I don't want anyone to have to go through what I had to go through, which was to feel so alienated and isolated trying to answer these questions about who I am, what my life is about, and especially saying I'm a Christian. Like, what does that look like? Do I even have a place in the church? And the truth is, if you're asking those questions, I just want to let you know off the, right away. Yes, you do have a place in the church. You do have something to contribute. There is more to the Christian life than just being saved and trying to get everybody else saved. Like there's so much more to it than that. And not only that, but you have something to contribute to the church. And I guess I'll articulate that by telling another story. When I uh, finished my trade school classes, it was a 2-year course. Around the time I was finished, I felt called to ministry. I accepted it, so I started going to Olivet Nazarene University, which is in Illinois. If anyone wants to look that up, pretty cool place. I like it. And while I was there, I ended up co-founding a student ministry where students would travel on the weekends. They'd go into churches. They'd preach there. Spend some time in the youth Sunday school, and really just to do ministry in a church. And the whole reason I did that was because I was convinced, and I really did feel this way, like very much so, that as much as college is about preparing you for your career, I didn't want that to translate into college being a time for me to prepare for my Christian life. As if I'm going to college to take classes to learn what it means to be a Christian, but it's only after I graduate that I actually live it out. I did not want to be about that. I says, no, God called me to ministry. I know I have a place in the kingdom, and I want to live that out now. So I'm going to find a way to do that. And the way that I found to do it was to start this ministry where students would go out and speak in churches. And the cool thing about that experience was a lot of the students that did that were not ministry majors. Some of them were math majors or computer science or social work, but they had that same sense that no, I have something to contribute to the kingdom. I have a place in the church where I'm not just a passive participant, where things are just being fed to me, but I can actually give something back. I can contribute to this. I can do something positive. And it was so cool to see students do that and to recognize that they do have a place in the kingdom. And obviously that's just one way that they could express it. They certainly found their own ways, but as much as I'm here to provide a place for students to talk and to learn more about the faith, I also want to be someone that who can encourage students to say, no, you have something to contribute. And it's not like you have to go through all these classes and you have to learn all this theology, though I do love theology and I think that's certainly important. But you don't have to do that in order to serve Christ and his church. You don't have to do that in order to have something to contribute. Just by the fact that you're here, you have something to contribute. You have an ability, you have a talent, you have a gift. The question is really just, how do you find a way to use that in a way that builds up the kingdom? And really, that's not a question that I can ask, but at the very least, I want to be someone who can help you ask that question and to help you find a place to really live that out and to find a place in the church, because there is a place in the church for you. Because in school, like I said before, you're being prepared for the rest of your life, but I don't want students to see this as a prep time for being a follower of Christ, though. Like once you graduate high school, like, well, you don't really have a place in the church until you go through this like educational period. Like, no, that's not true at all. You are a vital part of the church today. And I know that the phrase is pretty common, that we say to young people, oh, you're the church of tomorrow. And that's not a bad saying. Well, I do think it's a bad saying, but the idea behind it's not bad, right? Because the idea behind it is, at some point in the future, the adults now are not going to be around anymore, right? You are carrying the torch. But I also think it's a bad saying because by telling people you're the church of tomorrow, sometimes the idea being communicated is, but you're not a part of the church today. And that is a major error, I think, in how we communicate this. So when we look at our young people, when we look at people like you, if you're a college student or if you just graduated high school or you're about to graduate high school, I don't want you to think that you don't have a place right now, that your place in the church, that your time for leadership, for your time of setting the example, for your time of contributing is somewhere years down the road. I don't believe that. And I certainly don't believe that at all. And one of the examples I can give is when I was a pastor of a small church, I actually had teens sit on our church board, like our leadership board, and they would make financial decisions. We would make policy decisions, and they did great. They did a phenomenal job. And for me, I loved it because it was a good time to help them learn, the more administrative side of church, which can be boring, but is also a very important part of what the church does. And it also allowed the rest of the people in the room, the adults in the room, to hear from the younger generation. What are the things that they're concerned about? What are the things that they're seeing in their schools and in their homes that the church can help with? Because a lot of times we don't hear those voices. So I certainly believe our young people are a vital part of the church. And really, I just want to be here to be a resource, to be someone that, can speak truth and can be an encouragement and can be someone who maybe our young people can, feel comfortable talking with, and who are asking those questions about, what does this look like? What does it mean that I'm a Christian? How should I live this out? As I'm becoming an adult, moving forward, what is my place in the kingdom? Because I don't know what it is. I think those are good questions to ask, but maybe people, maybe some of our young people don't feel comfortable asking those questions, or maybe they just don't know how to articulate it, which for much of my story was the case. I simply didn't know how to ask these questions. I knew I was asking them. I didn't realize I was asking them because I didn't have someone, to help me out. But I want to be here to help out our young people. So that's just a little bit of what we're about, what we're doing. Obviously, we don't have a lot going on right now. We're still a fairly new ministry, but we're looking to grow, looking to expand. So we're also open to new ideas. If you have any ideas, anything you feel you'd like to contribute, certainly reach out to us. You can visit our website, emdcampusministry.org, or you can reach out to us on Facebook at EMD Campus Ministry. And look forward to getting to know you better and enjoy your time here.